Hey guys, how you doing? Can you hear me well, see well, everything is good? Second sound check right before we start. Great. All right, so let's see. Questions. Flavio says he can't see me. Can you see me now? Flavio, I cannot see you. I only see a picture. Rudy's on camera. Wow. Steph, what's up? Tidy's there. Meredith made it. Okay. Let's see. David is there. Mina Youssef. Sarah, Isis. Great. John, Eli. All right, there's a few of you. You need to have your cameras on. Remember that. Riley, hi. Let's see. All right. Yep, Carlos, I see your hand waving somewhere there. Let's see, who else? Hey, Moses, I have a message for you from Pedro. He says he misses your call. Says you don't call him no more. All right, let's see. So we're going to go straight to questions, and then we'll jump into this chapter. All right. That's what I told him. You got WhatsApp. All right, so we got questions here. Tidy says, can you explain Consumer Frauds Act and dual contract? Okay. So the Consumer Fraud Act is simply... Hold on. Got somebody that still cannot get in. We'll get this right one day. Hold on. All right, let's see. Susanna, you need to turn your camera on, please. Yanessa, I need your camera on. Everybody needs to have the camera on and pointing at them, please. Very, very important. All right, so going back to this. Can you explain Consumer Fraud Act and dual contract? So when we talk about the Consumer Fraud Act, we talked about misrepresentation yesterday, remember? And we talked that misrepresentation was either an opinion, and as long as it's stated as opinion, it shouldn't be a problem. Like, this is the most gorgeous view in the world, right? So that's just an opinion. But once you start getting into statements of fact, like there's no leaks in this building. Well, if there is a leak and you're stating there isn't one, then automatically you deliberately lied. Okay, so that's intentional fraud. And that's where the consumer, let's go back here, and that's where the Consumer Fraud Act comes in. You are committing fraud. Now, there's two other types of misrepresentation, which could be negligent, where you were careless. You did not see that there was a leak. You did not even pay attention to it, right? And that means you didn't do your job. So that's negligent or careless type of misrepresentation, okay? So again, still under the Consumer Fraud Act, you might be liable because you didn't do what you were supposed to do as a salesperson, okay? And the other one was the innocent misrepresentation. You looked around, doesn't look like there's leaks, so you're good. You did your job, right? But was it enough? This is where Consumer Fraud Act allows you to be exempted from liability if you did your visual inspection, right? There was a professional, like the home inspector, that gave his or her opinion under their license, his or her opinion, okay? And you were relying on their information. Let's say it was the seller, for instance. The seller filled out the seller's property condition disclosure statement. So the Consumer Fraud Act lists all these deceptive practices and tells you that you as a salesperson could be exempt from liability or limited liability if you can point the finger at somebody else. If you can prove that it wasn't you, that you relied on somebody else, then you might not be subject to fines, and the fines are up to $10,000 for first violation of the act. So that's what Consumer Fraud Act is. All right, before I address your second question, I have on YouTube Live, I got Gil. Gil, you decided not to join the Zoom? What's going on? Let's see. You're definitely not here. Let me know why you can't join the Zoom. I shared on WhatsApp and I shared on the Facebook group. It should be there. Okay. All right. So where were we? All right. Cool. So the second thing was dual contract. So Tidy, you're good with that one, with Consumer Frauds Act? Great. So dual contract. Under dual contract, guys, we're saying that we have two separate contracts for the same house. So let's say Gary's the buyer, Daphne's the seller, and it's the same house on 1023 Johnson Street. Okay? Same exact house. One is selling, the other one's buying. But they decided to create two contracts for that particular purchase. Now, why would Daphne and Gary have two contracts for the same purchase between them two? Right? The only reason is to try to get more money, so get an inflated purchase price, so the lender gives you more money. That's what it is. So you're defrauding the bank by saying that it's a different value than what it really was, the exchange. So we exchanged for $300,000, but you're asking $350 or $400 from Wells Fargo. Do you understand? So that's what a dual contract is. In the state of New Jersey, it's illegal to have dual contracts. Chad, I think Abanub found your beach. Look around for him, because that's his background now. Let's see, Daphne. Okay. Daphne is asking, what is the canned spam that was mentioned on Quizlet? It's not on Chapter 3. You're absolutely right. The only reason I put on the Quizlet is because in the state exam there might be a question about it. In my school exam there might be a question about it, right? And I'll address it later better about this, but the canned spam is about emails. And unfortunately, it falls under publication, advertisement, and if people did not subscribe for your communication, it could be considered spam. Therefore, the question and the answer for state exam is very simple. What is the canned spam, or what are you required to do under the Canned Spam Act? Simply allow the subscriber, or whoever you send the message to, allow them to unsubscribe. That's all. And it's not unsubscribe 6 months later, it's unsubscribe now. If you want to stop communications, there has to be in your email that you send to them, or whatever communication you send to them, there has to be a disclosure. Unsubscribe now. Okay? It's not later, it's now. All right? Abanub and Chad are now at the same beach. If you guys see each other, let me know. All right, Daphne, did I cover that? Okay, and I think in Quizlet it explains it. So once you click on the flashcard, it says what it is. So, but the question will just ask you, when do they have to unsubscribe by, or they don't have to unsubscribe, or you don't have to stop, something like that. Just remember, every email communication has to have an unsubscribe button. That's all. Next. Daphne, did we talk about Chapter 4 yet? That's what we're doing today. So, are you sure it's Chapter 4 or Chapter 3? Okay, so let's address that today. Okay? Brian, so for some reason, Brian, I already approved you, by the way, but for some reason, when somebody goes to Quizlet, some of you, I need to approve. Others, automatically using the link, automatically are in the class set. So you right away you have access. I don't know why, but if you do have difficulties with Quizlet, where it doesn't allow you to log in, or it says pending approval, just send me a message and I'll address it. Okay? But Brian, you should be okay. I accepted you a little bit earlier today. Okay, Crystal just gave you a hint right there. Next, Yanessa says, sorry I was logged in twice. You guys just get used to logging in twice, right? Like, I got a bunch of people here that are double, triple. Unbelievable. All right, let's see. Gil, you're in their laptop is crazy, so you're on the phone. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so I think we're done with this, with the questions. Let's see what I got in the WhatsApp real quick. All right, that was for Gil. Thank you guys for helping. Okay. All right, so Daphne wrote, I usually don't read the flashcards since I already read the chapter. Do you recommend reading the flashcards? Okay, so the Quizlet pretty much is flashcards. It's for you to be able to, especially today, I'm going to show you how you need to associate a few things right away. So once you see the words or numbers or whatever, you should know what it is right away. Okay, like today we're going to talk about Civil Rights Act and Federal Housing Practices Act and all that stuff, and different years that you need to remember what it was for. Okay, so are the flashcards helpful? I'll tell you what, for some people, no. For other people, yes. For some people, just doing reviews at the end of each chapter, the review questions is enough. For other people, you need to read the whole thing all over again or redo the class all over again. Everybody's a little different. So what I try to do is give you guys as many tools as I can, and whatever fits your learning style, that's what should be there for you. So if you're not good with the flashcards, if it doesn't help you, then don't do it. Find your thing. I mean, everything is there. All the tools are there. There's nothing else that I can potentially provide for you guys right now other than that. Does that make sense? We got flashcards. We got test yourselves. You got the reviews at the end of each chapter. You got PowerPoints. You have this right here, the visual, me being able to draw on the board and showing you guys what I'm doing, right? So I'm just trying to cater to all different type of learning styles and hopefully raise the success level at the state, all right? Because it's ridiculous. I'll tell you guys right now, it's ridiculous the numbers we see at the state. I get a report of what's happening with my school, and I get a report what's happening in the state of New Jersey. And luckily, knock on wood, right now, we are above the national average. But that doesn't mean that we're better than other schools. It just means that as a national average, the first time that my students go take the exam, we're way above. On the second time, we're doing way greater than the state average. Does that make sense? I'm not saying there's a school that's better or worse, but I'm telling you where we are, and I'm trying to raise the bar even more by providing as many tools as I can, okay? And being able to answer the questions like I'm doing right here, okay? Julie, welcome. Next, Heather says, you have done a great job providing different learning styles. Very impressed with Quizlet. I'm glad. Sarah, I know. I'm just kidding. All right, so David says, I scheduled my state test. I have to wait until August 19th. I did tell you, right? We're about a month and a half behind with PSI. So PSI exams, once you finish this course, you will be able to schedule the exam, but they are 1.5 months more or less behind. So I do recommend, just like David is doing, Jonathan, Sarah, and a few others, they're still here, clinging on to my bad jokes, right? They're still here because it helps you keep everything fresh and get ready for the state exam whenever it comes. All right? The resources are available for everybody until you get to the exam. You want to stay after the exam? Totally up to you. But until you get to the exam, take advantage of all the resources. Come to these Zoom classes as many times as you can. It's included. Just do it. Okay. Talia, can I get on the Quizlet too? I'm going to charge you more for that, okay? Here you go, guys. I'm going to put in the chat. It's very simple. Right there. Talia, you got it. Right there. Click on it. and for $9.99 plus 30% tax is yours. Okay. Jonathan, yeah, absolutely. Stay after the exam. You did want lobster, didn't you? You've been coming back for the lobster. All right, guys. So if there's no other questions, right, we're going to start. We got chapter 4 and 5 today. All right. You guys ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready for this. Great. Oh, by the way, Abanub, I told you your name reminded me of somebody from WWE, right? I talked about that. All right, so once you're done, just check John Cena's intro. So when he comes into the ring, check it out and see what they say right in the beginning of that song. They yell out your name, man. I've been trying to figure out what are they saying in the beginning, and now that I met you, that's what it is. They're calling out your name. All right, so fair housing, guys. Now, you probably already heard this before. Equal housing opportunity, equal credit opportunity, equal employment opportunity, right? You've heard these terms before. Can you guys hit me up in the chat real quick? What does this mean? Equal credit opportunity, equal housing opportunity, equal employment opportunity. What does it mean? Hit me up in the chat. Let me know. Okay? Fairness for all. It means it's open to everyone. No discrimination. Fair to all. No discrimination. Right? Very good. Fair housing, which started in 1968. We'll get there. Same opportunities for all. Open to everyone, no matter if you're from look, Stephen, I'm not sure if Martians can buy a house. I know we're trying to go there and buy land in a few years, but I don't know if they can come here and do it. And, it doesn't work that way. Fair housing regardless of income or race. We all have the same opportunities. Very good. Good. Vanessa, I think that's the best answer ever. Low prices for everybody. Yeah. We're just going to put the Best Buy, roll back prices. That's what it is. No, it's actually being able to be fair to everyone. Everybody's entitled. Everybody has equal rights. So everybody's entitled to get employed. Everybody's entitled to apply for credit. And everybody's entitled to buy a house. That's what it is. There should be no discrimination. And that's what this chapter is about. Okay? And here comes my technical one. I always have one like this. Everyone has the right to housing, and federal government stipulates renters cannot discriminate, except in the case of when the owner lives in the property. Thank you, Crystal. All right, so we're going to go into that. Fair housing. Equal to all. Okay? Fair housing. Wow, we got an overflow today. We got 52 people. Let's see. 52 people and a few duplicates, of course, Heather. All right, so let's talk about fair housing. Now, this chapter is probably one of the most important chapters that we're going to go through. Not because, like I told you, the core chapters is 1, 2, and 3. These are the core chapters, very, very important. All right, Monica, stop budging in. Come on. So these are like the 1, 2, 3 are the core chapters for you as an agent, right? But chapter 4, it's probably one of the trickiest chapters in terms of questions. It's where they trick you the most. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to be like, discriminate what? Yeah, there's actually exemptions. I told you on Monday that every rule has an exemption. Guess what? There are certain instances where it's okay to discriminate. Right? Doesn't make any sense. But if you guys don't pay attention to these rules, look what it says here. As a potential licensee, the student of real estate must be aware of illegal and discriminating housing practices in order to avoid them. In fact, failure to comply with fair housing practices is not only grounds for license revocation, but it's also a criminal act. if it's a criminal act, you guys are going to get not only fines and penalties, right? But also potential what? Jail time. All right? So discrimination is a big no-no. And this is not only for somebody that's licensed. It applies to everyone. It's just that for you that is licensed or will be licensed, you could lose your license if you intend to discriminate. Now, the very first one, it's called the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And I want you guys to notice that I only have one thing highlighted here in the whole sentence, Civil Rights Act of. I only have the 1866 highlighted, okay? And it's in green. Because I told you green is, hey, wake up, pay attention, this is actually important, okay? Not that everything else is not, but this is most likely going to be in the state exam. Maybe not the 1866, but what it stands for. So what you need to remember, guys, is that in 1866, Civil Rights Act was passed. But what was it about? In 1866, we said that everybody is equal, and we prohibited discrimination based on race and color. So that's what you need to remember. 1866, automatically, race and color. Automatic. When you see 1866, boom, race and color. And this is where, Daphne, for instance, this is where flashcards will be useful in a scenario like this. You need to know 1866, race and color. Okay? Now, the question is not going to be what happened in 1866. No. But the question could be somebody rejected the rental of a unit to somebody that was orange. Okay? Do they have any remedy under the law? The answer is yes. They have a remedy actually under the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They can sue. In fact, they can go to federal court, which I'll show you in a little bit. Does that make sense? So the question is not going to be what happened in 1866. But you need to relate immediately 1866 to race and color. Okay? Now, page 51 says, right above Federal Fair Housing Act, it says, there are no exceptions allowed to this federal law. No exceptions allowed to this federal law. Okay? Guys, do me a favor if you can. Put the cameras towards your face. I need to know you guys are there. I see some foreheads. I see some hair. But I need to see you guys, okay? Chad, Abanub did not like the beach where you guys were at. He just moved to San Francisco. He's out. All right. Next. You need to remember, so we're going to repeat this several times. You need to remember that 1866, there are no exceptions, okay? Now, the Federal Fair Housing Act. Notice that, again, the only thing I have highlighted is 1968. Why? Because there's no other 1968 in the book. So, just like there's no other 1866, there's no other 1968, which makes it easier to recall immediately what it means. See, this is what happened. In 1968, so 102 years later, they said, wait a minute, just race and color is a protected class? There should be more protected classes. So they added to this, they added religion and they added national origin. So where you came from and what religion you have, right, which was originally protected under the Constitution anyway, right? But they made it a federal law that says you are protected no matter what. Now, what happened in 1968, they didn't just add religion, national origin. They also added exemptions or exceptions to the law. So, yeah, we're protecting certain groups of people, but if you do it this way, it's okay to discriminate. That's what happened in 1968. So, one thing to remember is that the federal law applies to selling or leasing of residential property. And I'm going to show you later, when we get to the state law, that it's only for renting of any property. But in federal, the protection or exemptions only fall under selling or leasing, so renting, residential property. If it's commercial, go ahead and discriminate. If it's industrial, go ahead and discriminate. That's what they're saying. All right? But that's federal. That's not state. Okay? Now, these are common sense, I think, and they're part of the state as well. So when we get there, I'm going to skip as well. But I just want to show you the first one. It says right here, what could be considered a discriminatory act? Well, refusing to sell, rent, or negotiate with any person, or otherwise making a dwelling or unit unavailable to any person, right? Just because of their race, color, religion, or national origin. Changing the terms, conditions, or services, right? So, yeah, the rent is $1,500 for 6 months, but for you it's $1,800 for a year because you're different than me. You cannot change the terms. You cannot refuse to sell, right? That'll be a little shady, right? So, these are common sense. Just go over them. On the right-hand side on top, I told you we have exemptions. Exemptions, right? And by the way, there's not one of these that's going to make sense. For some people it might, but to me it doesn't. There's not one of these exemptions that makes sense to me. So let's go over this. Talia, whatever you're cooking is smelling good over here. Just saying. All right. Next. So these are the exemptions. Let's start with this. Actually, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Right here. So the sale or rental, so exemptions, the sale or rental of a single family home, so one family, right, is exempted when the home is owned by an individual who does not own more than 3 such homes. So before I read the rest, what we're saying is, if you want to sell or rent a single family, it's okay, as long as you don't own more than 3 single families. Okay? So far, that's where we're at. You can sell one of them or rent one of them, but you cannot own more than 3. All right? So, when you don't own more than 3 at one time, or when you use a broker, an agent, or some type of discriminatory advertising. So if you do that, then you are not exempted from this law, okay? So, recapping before I read the rest. You're selling one, but you cannot own more than 3. So if you intend to discriminate, never buy the 4th home. That's what we're saying, okay? So you got 3 single-family homes. You cannot use an agent. You cannot use discriminatory advertisement. So your advertisement cannot be explicit and say, hey, no green people. You cannot put that on the advertisement. Once they get towards your door and they fill out the application or whatever, you can say, no, I'm sorry. I want to see other kind of people. All right? Face-to-face is different. Then it's okay. But your advertisement cannot be that explicit. All right? But there's more to this. There's more to this. It says if the owner is not living in the dwelling at the time that the transaction, or was not the most recent occupant, then only one such sale by an individual is exempt from the law within a 24-month period. So, I told you guys, these exemptions don't make sense at all. But this is what happens. If I'm selling a house that I was not the most recent occupant, so I was not the one living there, right? Then I can discriminate, but only once every 2 years. Okay? So 2 years later, good news, I get to discriminate again. Until then, I have to, accept anyone, and I don't like everyone. So how am I going to do this? How can I discriminate? Right? Here's the thing. Unless somebody complains, this 24-month period never starts. That's the problem. So the law is there, the exemption is there, and people keep on discriminating. Why? Because nobody complains. There's not enough complaints to make this a reality, right? So I guess we've seen a lot of changes happening recently, and it took a large movement. But anyway, it is what it is. Now I have a question from Gary. You just wrote never mind. Okay, this is for the seller. Yeah, seller or landlord. Okay. The next one says, it says the rental of rooms or units is exempted in an owner-occupied 1 to 4 family dwelling. So if you live in that building that you're trying to rent a unit in, right, you can discriminate against the people that come live in the units next to you, as long as it's not more than 4 families. So 1 to 4 family is okay. You got to remember one thing. This is federal. Okay, this whole section is federal. State law is a little different. We're going to get there in a little bit, but you got to remember, owner-occupied 1 to 4 family is a federal law, federal exemption. If you live there, you can discriminate. That's what we're saying. Any questions here? No questions before we move forward? Okay, good. Next. It says dwelling units owned by religious organizations. So I'm going to compare these next 2 bullet points. I'm going to put them in the same group, and I'm sorry if you're very religious. I'm sorry, this is just for the example, what I'm going to do. Okay? But dwelling units owned by religious organizations may be restricted to people of the same religion if membership in the organization is not restricted on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, or familial status. The next one says, and I'll explain it all in a second, it says a private club is not open to the public. That is not open to the public may restrict the rental or occupancy of lodgings that it owns to its members, as long as the lodgings are not operated commercially. So both the religious entities, right, and the private clubs are based on membership. So as long as you are a member, it's okay. So remember this. If we have a gym, this is the comparison I always make. Let's say we have 24-hour fitness and we have retro fitness. 2 different types of gyms, right? 2 different franchises. Can these guys go work out over there? Can they go work out at a different gym, different franchise? And the answer is no, unless they have a membership there as well, right? So that's what happens here, guys. In the religious organizations, there's a lot of religious organizations that what they do is they buy a building for the members of that particular group, okay? So it's to help the members that have difficulties. Then they purchase and they can rent from the church directly, right? A private club is also for its members. The problem with these two is that once they start advertising to the general public, that is considered operating commercially. It's no longer private, it's commercial. It's open to the general public. So you cannot reject somebody if it's open to the general public. Then it would be discrimination. You guys understand what I'm saying? Any questions here? No? Let me know if you got questions. Drop them in the chat. No? All right, good. So if there's no questions, moving forward. Listen, Yameli, I asked if you had questions. I didn't say, do you want me to repeat it again? So if there was a question, I would repeat. You're asking to repeat the whole thing. I've been talking for like 20 minutes already. All right, so Yameli, all I was saying is, for instance, let's look at this. So both for the religious organizations and for the private club, right? Let me see where you are so I know that I'm addressing you directly. Where are you? Oh, there you go. Okay, so hi. So you're talking about these two, right? That's what you want me to repeat? Great. So here's the thing. What I was trying to say is the same way I have the student portal, okay? The student portal was created for my students. So when you go to Quizlet, you go through the student portal. There's a private link for you to get there. Not everybody can get in. Does that make sense? Can I bring an outsider and give access to the outsider that's not a student? I could, but the moment I do that, if I don't allow all other outsiders to have access, then I'm discriminating. You understand? So the religious group, let's say it's a church, and they buy a building next door that it's 100 units, let's say. They bought the building, but they bought for the members of the church. So the people that go to that church, they're the ones that occupy that building. The moment they start advertising on Craigslist, hey, a unit available, right? They advertise on Craigslist, not to the members of the church, but publicly to everybody. Then they can no longer discriminate based on membership or religion. You got it? And the private club that we said here is the same thing. Let's say it's the New Direction Club, and we own several properties, right, throughout the United States. You're traveling, and you want to go to San Francisco, and we happen to have a property there. The property is only available to members of the New Direction Club. You got it? The moment we advertise that property to the general public, then it's no longer part of the private club. So all we're saying is that the key to the question and the answer is for you to look at membership status, not looking at race, color, national origin, disability, or familial status. You're looking at membership status. That's what I was trying to introduce here. Okay? Good. All right. Don't say thank you. I accept donations. Just throw me a bone once in a while. All right. Next. 1974. Now, if you guys notice, I don't have 1974 highlighted by itself. Okay? So 1974, there's other 1974s in the book. In this case, it says there was an amendment. And that amendment added sex, which is gender. For all you adults, I'm just clarifying that there's no discrimination against sex. There's discrimination against gender. So I want to make sure you guys understand what that means. And they added gender as a protected class. You cannot discriminate the rental to women or the rental to men only. You cannot, right? And then in 1988, it's funny because only the women were smiling at this one. And then in 1988, 2 new classes were added. Those with mental or physical disabilities, including AIDS, and familiar status. Now, familiar status is, a lot of you don't understand what this is. Familial status means family members under 18 years of age. So you've probably seen ads that say no children allowed, right? As of 1988, that is illegal. We cannot say I'm renting to you, but no children. So what are we going to do? Keep the children outside? No. You have to rent to the family as well, okay? Next it says, although alcoholics and persons in treatment are considered a protected class, drug abusers are not. These are not a protected class, nor are those who pose a threat to the health or safety of others. So when we do a background check, which landlords usually like to do, when we do a background check, if it pops up, they have a criminal background, right? I'm not entitled to question what the background is, but I don't have to either. The moment I see criminal background, I can say, no, I'm not renting to you. And it's not discrimination according to what we just read. Okay, now I don't know the reason why you got a criminal background, but like I said, I don't want to know. That's it. You have a bad mark. Get out. Next. All right, so all we're saying is alcoholics and persons in treatment are protected. Drug abusers or people that pose a threat or might be considered a threat, unfortunately, they are not exempt from this, okay? And now we're going to get into housing intended for older persons, okay? Now, housing intended for older persons, all right, hold on. I got a question from Nicole. How do you check someone's background? There's a lot of services out there, and when you apply to rent, for instance, we go through a service like, for instance, NTN, which is to know, it's a network to know the tenant's background, and we can check. No, they're not free. You pay, or have the tenant pay as an application fee, let's say. There's others like TLO, which is from TransUnion. There's some which is Move Me Guide or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of different services out there that pull the background information. Okay? You cannot pull without their permission. That's why they sign an application that you're pulling that information. Okay? But you definitely can. It's not always the wisest thing, because you don't know what happened in my life and the reason why I have that negative mark on my in my credit or my background. But in today's day and age, we rely on these things. Banks rely on these things. Insurance relies on these things. You cannot make a mistake and automatically, right, you're a stain. That's how they see it. It sucks. Anyway, going back to this. Housing intended for older persons. Housing intended for older persons is exempt from familiar status. Okay? Exempt from familiar status. What does that mean? Well, if familiar status is family members under the age of 18, and this housing is intended for older persons, then we're saying, hey, this is a senior housing. We don't want kids. Doesn't that make sense? Right? So as long as we show that it's intended for senior housing, it's okay. So let's see right here. Riley, I'm going to address that when we get to state. I actually have that answer when we get to state, okay? If you guys notice, I have a gap. The whole thing is highlighted, right? But then I have a gap right here. I did not highlight this. Why? Because there's two classes of senior housing. That's why I kept this separation. And the two classes are something that's strictly or solely for persons 62 or older, and the other one is for the 55 plus that you guys know, right? Most people know the second one, 55 plus, right? But there's definitely two classes. Now, housing that's intended for people 62 or older, that means that the youngest person occupying that community is at least 62. You guys got it? A 55 plus says, right here, 55 plus says that at least one person must be 55 or older. You got it? So 62 or older, make a note, take a note somewhere. 62 or older is strictly 62 or older, meaning the youngest person in this community must be 62, or at least 62. The 55 plus, only one of the persons occupying a unit must be 55 or older. So the example I usually give, let's say I'm married, my wife is 5 years younger than me, so I reach the age of 55, she's 50. Can we move into this 55 plus? Well, only one of us needs to be the age of 55, so the answer is yes. Now, a few years later, I reach the age of 62. That means she's 57. Can we move into a 62 or older? The answer is no. I know sometimes it sounds like, oh, well, that's common sense, right? But if we don't visualize, if we don't think about it, if I don't put the examples, a lot of people get stuck when the question pops up. Okay? And at the end of this chapter, there is a question that will trick you. Instead of saying 62 and older, they can say 68 and older, right? There's no 68 and older community. There's a 62 and older community. So that's what I'm trying to say, guys. You have to pay attention to the way the questions are written. Okay. Daphne keeps on hitting me. Jeez, terrible. All right. So where were we? So now the other thing I'm trying to show here is, guys, very simple, is housing facility or community publishes and adheres to policies and procedures that demonstrate this intent to be housing for older persons. So that's what I was saying before. That's what I was saying before when I said when it comes to senior housing, for them to carry this exemption, as we just said, for them to carry the familiar status exemption, there must be a strict policy and guidelines that intend to demonstrate, right, that demonstrate they intend to be housing for older persons, okay? Got it? So there has to be strict intent for that. Now, good? Now, they also have to comply. They also have to comply with occupancy rules issued by the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and a licensee, so you guys, marketing such housing for older persons. So, Act, Daphne, housing for older persons should make sure that the facility states in writing that it complies with the requirements for this exemption. So this whole section right here falls under Housing for Older Persons Act, HOPA. Okay, that's this whole section. Okay, and that was established more in detail back in the 90s. So make sure. Let me see. It's right here. Okay. So make sure you guys understand that there's no there's nothing more specific about it as far as HOPA, but that's what it is. It's housing intended for older persons. It was an act that pretty much put this all together. Again, after, we just don't have the year here. We have 1974, 1988, familial status, and then in 1995, I think it was, or 96, they created this, an exemption, which is, again, housing for older persons, and then A would be act. Okay? Now, Shady, so no one under the age of 62 can live there. In the 62 or older specifically, so this one, no. Nobody under that age can live there. Now, guys, understand, the community guidelines have to say that it's intended for older persons. They are exempt from that discrimination part, right? They're exempt. They can discriminate against minors. But can they allow it? Yeah, they can allow it. We're just saying that the housing is intended for older persons. They are approved, as long as they show intent right here, they show the intent to be housing for older persons, they are approved to reject minors. That's all we're saying. Can they accept it? Yes. Like there's this community, I helped somebody move years ago into senior housing in Florida, a 55 plus in Florida. And that particular community allows for grandchildren, specifically written right like this. Grandchildren can visit grandparents no more than 6 months at a time. So the rule was simple. 6 months they live with you. You ship them overnight, and then you ship them back for another 6 months. So you had 1 day off, and pretty much the whole year they spend the time with you. The exemption is there. No children, but it's okay if it's 6 months at a time. Do you guys understand? They can still allow it. It all depends on the guidelines. All right? Daphne, they should state it that way. It's confusing. When was this act established? What is confusing? The housing's for older persons, HOPA? It's Housing for Older Persons Act. Okay? And it was established, it was somewhere in the 90s. So I'm not sure if it was 93, 94, or 95. It was around there, but early to mid 90s. There's a lot of things that are not in this book, unfortunately. And not every book is 100% complete. That's why I keep on giving you guys more stuff, including the Quizlet now. My school exam, is very similar to the state exam, includes a few questions that actually pop up in the state exam. So, again, I try to give you everything, even what's not here, okay? Daphne's saying HOPA Act. Okay. HOPA Act, but it doesn't mention it as an act. I got that question wrong and the wording was confusing in the Quizlet, you're saying. Okay. So now you know what it is. That's why I like to go through the chapters first before you guys do Quizlets, okay? Don't do the Quizlets as we go. But HOPA is H, housing, O, older, P, persons, and an A is for act. So HOPA is Housing for Older Persons Act. And if I'm not mistaken, again, it was early to mid 90s. If I don't have a date, if I don't put here a date, it's because the date itself is not important. But you guys can search it up later on if you want. Okay. Is it clear now, Daphne, though? Because that's all it is. It's the whole thing is about they're being exempt, as I said, exempt from familial status. They're being able to reject children in the community. That's all it is. And they're the only ones that can do that. Housing intended, as we just said, housing intended for older persons. As long as we clearly demonstrate that's what it is for, it's okay to discriminate. Okay? The next thing we have is Jones versus Mayer. Now, remember, in 1866, race and color became protected classes, correct? That was the first act. It was the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Now, in 1968, as we just read, they added religion, national origin, but they also added exemptions where it was okay to discriminate, right? You guys with me so far? Okay. Now, Jones versus Mayer was a lawsuit that happened also in 1968. The thing here is that Jones, an African American, sued Mayer, which is Alfred H. Mayer Company, alleging that Mayer had refused to sell him a house in St. Louis County, Missouri, solely on the basis of race. So, in 1866, we say race and color are protected classes. So could Alfred H. Mayer Company reject the sale to or rental to Jones? They could, because of the 1968 law. See, in 1968, they added exemptions. What the court did in its ruling, they said, wait a minute. We're going to uphold the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which prohibits all racial discrimination, private or public, in the sale and rental of property. So, despite the exemptions, okay, despite the exemptions of the 1968 law, an aggrieved person may seek remedy for racial discrimination under the 1866 law against any homeowner, regardless of whether the homeowner employed a real estate broker and or advertised the property. Because of this case, because of Jones versus Mayer, where race is involved, no exceptions apply. Okay? That's what we're saying. In 1866, race and color became protected classes. You cannot discriminate based on race and color. 1968, they added religion and national origin, but they also said, yeah, but if you do it this way, it's okay to discriminate, right? Jones versus Mayer came to say, no. If the original law, okay, if the basis, if the foundation of these protections was race and color, then obviously we're not going to start bending the rules right away. So they said, the judge says, again, where race is involved, if it's based on the 1866 law, where race is involved, there are no exceptions. So Alfred H. Mayer had to pay compensation for not allowing for the discrimination against Jones. You guys got it? Tidy, you wrote simple words. Did you get it? Do you want me to repeat or okay? It's very simple. Remember, 1866 law, what is it about? Race and color, right? It's protecting different races and different colors when it comes to the purchase of a house, right? In fact, it's in general. You shouldn't discriminate, period. That's what they say. But in 1968, 102 years later, they said, let's not stick only to race and color. Let's protect also people from different religions and different national origin. Because again, that's what the Constitution was about. Everybody's welcome here, regardless of their creed, right? And their origins. We are all equal. That's what we said, right? So, because here, sorry, some sound outside. Okay, because in 1968, they added religion and national origin. They also added exemptions or loopholes that allow you to still discriminate as long as you follow certain patterns. Like I said, if you have a one family, but you don't own more than 3, can you discriminate? Yeah. So these are loopholes, right? And what we're saying is, regardless of those loopholes, Jones versus Mayer said, if it's race, if it's based on the 1866 law, which is the foundation of these protections, then it has no effect. That exemption has no effect. You cannot discriminate, period. You got it? 1866 law says no exceptions at all. If it's based on race and color, you cannot discriminate at all. You got it? Tidy? Good. All right? Can't discriminate at all. Now, the next thing we have is the Equal Housing Opportunity poster. If you guys look, right above, there's a poster. All right, so for those of you that have the ebook, just scroll up. For those of you that have the physical book, just look up. And it says right here, this is the poster, by the way. It's this. And every office, every real estate office must have this poster. If you guys ever come visit our office, it's right at the entrance. You can't miss it. If you miss it when you come in, you can't miss it when you go out. There's 2 posters. One is the federal, which is this one, and the state poster, which I'll show you in a little bit. Both of them are there. Now, guys, in the chat, help me out. What is the first thing that pops out as you're looking at this poster? What is the first thing you guys see? Let me know in the chat. Illegal. Good. Somebody sees the equal. Okay, good. Sabrina sees equal. Very good. The equal sign of the house, says Linda. Equal house, then illegal. Luz sees the little house with the equal. Because if it's a big house, you cannot put the equal sign. That's what Luz is saying right now. Little houses, equal. Big houses, can't. All right. Very good, very good. All right, so that's what it is. Pretty much what we're saying is, if you see this first, then it means equal housing opportunity, everybody's equal. And if you don't see that equal sign, then it says in big bold letters that it's illegal to discriminate against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or even national origin. Every office has to have this. And if it's a model home, like when we go to certain communities that are being built, and they have a model home for you to go and see how they're going to look like, and if you decide to buy or not, right, or change the model, even the model home has to have this. Okay? Both the federal and the state poster. Now, why am I taking so much time on the poster? Because, next page, page 53, when HUD investigates a broker for discriminatory practices, it considers failure to display the poster as evidence of discrimination. So just the fact that the poster is not there, it's the first check mark on the list that the HUD investigator has to determine if you discriminate or not. Okay? So it's not so much about the poster itself, it's about having some type of policy, as we'll talk about later, some type of policy or some type of training or recognition to your agents that they're not supposed to discriminate at all. You guys got it? The poster is not there for the client. The poster is there for everybody in the office to be reminded once in a while that they cannot discriminate. Much like having a badge, right? A badge doesn't mean you uphold the law, right? And by the way, I'm not going into the whole political what's happening now. I'm talking about in general. I've been saying this for years. Having a badge doesn't mean you're actually upholding the law, all right? It just shows that you should be reminded that that's what the badge is for. Do you guys understand? Having a license doesn't mean you don't discriminate. But taking this course and every 2 years being reminded of ethics, moral standards, discrimination, all that stuff, right? Being reminded should help you avoid these actions. Very important. Now, where's Gil? Let me see. Need to mess with him for a second. Oh, there you are. Gil. This was from yesterday, from your comment yesterday, but we're going to address it today, okay? Blockbusting. Gil's always ahead of the game. It's Gil, Crystal, and then now I have Daphne ahead of the game. All right. So, blockbusting and steering. Guys, blockbusting. David says movie night. You had to bring that up, right? So, blockbusting. Who remembers Blockbuster? Let me know in the chat. What was Blockbuster? Since David brought it up. What was Blockbuster? Who remembers that? Daphne, I'll address that when we get to state. It's a lot easier when we get to the state portion, okay? Let's see. Movie store, movie rentals, video store. Okay, so for those of you that have that as a video store, then I can assume they're you under 30s. Let's see, movie rentals. The old Netflix and chill. There you go. And Gil came with the answer. All right, so here's the thing. I miss Blockbuster. All right, do you guys see what chat just wrote here? Hold on, right there, Beta Movies. Okay. So the thing about Blockbuster, I usually ask what was the cool thing about it, but this is what it was. Blockbuster came out with the first movies, meaning as soon as they got out of the movie theaters, if you wanted to watch it, let's say you missed it, or you want to watch it again, and you don't have the opportunity to go to movies, guess who had it first? They paid big to have those royalty rights where it came to them first. So if you wanted to watch it was like Black Friday, but for movies. Everybody rushed to Blockbuster. They created, that's what blockbusting means, they created a panic peddling. They created the fear that if you don't get it now, you will lose it. And a lot of people have something called FOMO, which is fear of missing out, right? And it's a great sales tactic. If you guys can show, especially what's happening today on the market, I do this to my clients for them to understand how the market is developing still. I tell my clients, look, if you find something you like, put an offer. From there on, we can definitely figure out the rest, but put an offer. You liked it. Here's the thing. Keep on looking at houses, and when you find the one you liked was the one you saw a week ago, guess what? The one you saw a week ago is gone. So you need to create the fear of missing out, the FOMO, the blockbusting, right? The difference is blockbusting when it comes to discrimination, the actual blockbusting when it comes to discrimination, is that they were creating panic peddling or inducing homeowners to sell by making representations of the entry or prospective entry of minorities. So they're saying, hey, this group of people is moving into the neighborhood, and if they settle here, you already know. It's like a caravan. Once one comes, 20 come, 100 come, 1,000 come, and then guess what? The property value that you have right now is going to go down because that group of people destroys everything. That group of people, they don't know how to maintain houses. That group of people, they're very loud, so the community is not going to be worth as much. That group of people, and so on, and create this fear. They instill this fear on the seller and make them sell the house. Now, the blockbuster, so the realtor that does this, makes a profit by listing the home or buying them cheaply, and guess what? Selling them to the minority persons. So I'll scare you into selling, I'll buy from you, and then I sell to the person that I scared you from. That's blockbusting. And Federal Fair Housing Act clearly prohibits this practice. So every time you see blockbusting, think about scaring. So scaring or panic peddling. The same thing they do with Black Friday. If you don't get here right now, and that's why people camp from the night before, if you don't get here right now, you might miss out on this or you might miss out on that. In this case, you might miss out on selling your property at a higher value because these minorities will destroy the value of your community. All right? So, illegal. Questions here? Was it clear? All right, remember, if you're typing a question, make sure you put the question mark first so I know that you're going to type something. This way I'll wait for you. If not, I'll just move forward. So that was blockbusting. The next thing we have is steering. Now, steering is just like when you get in your car. When you get in the car, you sit down, and right in front of you, there's a round thing, right? And that round thing that you put your hands on is called a steering wheel. Everybody knows, right? Why is it called a steering wheel? Because if you just accelerate, you're going to go straight into something, right? So you steer either to or away from a particular area. In terms of real estate, I'm steering my client either to or away, so I'm guiding my client either to or away from a particular area based on race, religion, country of origin, or other protected class. So what I'm saying is, somebody says, hey, I want to live in this area. And you look at them and say, I don't think you're the right type of person for this community. You are 2 shades of this or 2 shades of that, or your religion over there. I don't know. So steering sometimes is done intentionally, where we're blunt about it, or sometimes it's done unintentionally. Sometimes we don't even tell the buyer or the seller what's going on. So in this case, it's for the buyers, but we don't tell the buyer or the seller what's going on. We just grab the buyer and say, oh, this house is not available. But that one, right, 2 miles down, that one's available. Let's go see it. It's a better price, and you qualify for it. All right? So steering is taking a person either to a particular area based on what we perceive from looking at that person, what we perceive that they should be in, right? Or away from that area because they don't belong there. Again, steering is often difficult to detect because the tactics could be very subtle, and the home seeker is unaware that his choices have been limited. Steering can be done unintentionally because of our own subconscious assumptions. All right? So it's a lot easier when I have people here, because what I usually do is I point one person out and use as an example, right? Because I already talk a lot about me, so it's difficult to use me as an example. But when I use somebody here, it's a lot easier. I point them out and have them be the example and have everybody guess where that person is from, right? So again, make people realize that everybody has a different point of view when we look at somebody else. And the point of view or our perception where that person should be or not has nothing to do with that person's desires. So it's not up to us. This is addressing steering. It's not up to us to say you should live here. It's up to them, the client, to decide where they want to live. All right? To make it very simple. I'm Portuguese. Do I want to be in the middle of the Portuguese here in the Ironbound? No. I live 45 minutes away. All right? Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying I wouldn't live here. I did live here for several years, but now I live in a different area. And if I hired one of you, oh, you're Portuguese, so you're going to live right on Ferry Street in Newark. I'm like, no. I go to Newark to work. I love Newark. To work, to eat. I'm out. That's it. Do you guys understand? So don't assume or presume that a person wants to live in a particular area based on their background, based on your perception of where they're from. And this, guys, is very, very important. This is also prohibited under the Federal Fair Housing Act. All right, David just asked, do buyers sometimes tell agents what houses they want to see, or they leave it up to the agents to show them what's available? So here's what happens. Buyers traditionally say, I want to buy a two-family in this area. Traditionally. Some buyers say, I don't care where it is as long as it's a good deal. Others say, hey, I have to live in this type of community or I'm not buying at all. So you're going to have a mix from that. But you need to always filter. You need to know what your buyer really wants. Like, I'm dealing with a buyer right now that the list started off with 3 cities, right? 3 of them. We're now looking at 7 different cities that this buyer has intentions of living in. Not once did I question, are you sure? Because you don't look like the type of person that would live there, all right? Or would be accepted there. That's not my problem. If they want to live in those towns because they passed by those towns and that's where they want to go, then that's what it is. I'm going to now search properties without questioning. I'm going to search properties that meet the client's criteria. Okay, David? So, yes, sometimes we just present to them based on criteria. Others, they send to us what they want to see. All right? So it's going to be a mix and match. I got to the point with this client and with almost all the clients say, hey, if you find something that I'm not finding right now, something that you like, send it to me. 9 out of the 10 properties that this client sends to me, they're already under contract. They're above the price that the client's pre-approved for, or the taxes are too high, or there's not enough rental to substantiate the loan. So I help the client also, so we work together. I help the client filter. But again, don't take any discriminatory action, and this is very, very important. I'm going to show you at the end of this chapter, I'm going to show you guys guidelines of things you can say, things you can't say, both in advertisement and when talking to somebody. Okay? So remember, blockbusting is what? Scaring people into selling. Steering is taking buyers either to or away from particular areas on the basis of race, religion, country of origin, and so on. And then there's another one. Redlining. Redlining, what you need to remember is very simple. It's about refusing or rejecting mortgage or insurance. So every time in the question, if you see something about refusing mortgage or refusing insurance, remember redlining. Okay? And why is this important? Because it's refusing because you live in a particular area and it's regardless of your economic qualifications. You qualify for the loan, but you're trying to buy in Newark? No, reject it. Okay? You qualify for the insurance, but you're going to live in Irvington? No, I'm sorry. And by the way, I'm just mentioning towns because that's where I'm at right now, right? But insurance cannot reject, mortgage company cannot reject based on the location. They can only reject based on qualifications of the person, okay? I have a question from Tidy. What if they ask for your opinion? Will you live here? What do you mean? If Tidy, if they're asking, like we go see the property, and they ask me, would you live here? Is that what you're saying? Let me know in the chat, because I don't have you on the screen right now. Daphne, you put a question mark, so you're typing something. Sarah's asking if it's common. Sarah, you're asking if it's common what? Redlining? I don't have you guys on all the screens. Hold on. So Tidy said yes. Sarah, where is Sarah? right there. Oh, you're driving. That's why I couldn't see you. So you're saying yes. I hope you're. Were you speaking to the phone? Because don't type, or you got an assistant. All right. So all right. So addressing Tidy. What if they ask for opinion? And I'll address. Daphne just put a question. Great. So, Tidy, very simple. If they ask me, would I live here? Right? Let's say we're going to Newark to see a property. Would I live here? You have to understand, your lifestyle and my lifestyle are different. Your opinion, my opinion are different, right? We're not going to say, would I live here? Yeah, I would live in a $10 million mansion. No, I wouldn't. If you ask me that, I'll tell you no. I think it's, some people have ginormous houses for no reason. Just saying, right? There's other things they can do with their money. But I understand it's investment, it's estate, it's worth it, whatever. But they're always going to ask questions like that. Would you live? And I'll just say the same way I don't see myself living in a multi-million-dollar mansion, I also might not see myself living here with my kids because I need some type of amenities that for my kids, in my opinion, in my perception, I don't have. Doesn't mean it's not a good area. I've lived here in Newark, right? But there are a few things that I have now for my kids in a different stage of my life that I think are more important. So it all matters is what you want as a buyer. What are you looking for? Do you need to be next to the train and be able to get to New York? Do you need do you have a business here? You want to have it close to your business? Things like that. So you need to get out of your way and go back to your clients, okay? It's like, what would you do? Me, I'm in a different stage of my life. Me, I have totally different scenarios and different opinions of what I would do or not do. But let's figure out what you need. Just push the ball back to them. Try that. What else? So Sarah was asking if it was common to redlining. Let's address that before I go to Daphne. Redlining, this right here. Redlining, yes, it was common. Nowadays, they charge you a higher premium because you live in a particular area, okay? Because it's based on what's called the law of large numbers. How many accidents happen per amount of people or per capita, right? In the area. How many, as far as loans, how many defaults happen in this area? So we're looking at risk. You have to understand, both mortgage and insurance are based on risk, right? So they cannot reject you, but they were entitled, because you live in certain areas, they're entitled to charge more as a risk prevention. Okay, Sarah? What else we have? Daphne. Why would we notice the salesperson? Wouldn't that fall on the mortgage? No. Right, so right here, we're just trying to explain. So you're going to learn a lot of things, Daphne, that it's, and this is for everyone. You're going to learn a lot of things as general information, general real estate. All right? Why do we need to know this? Well, because our job is to be a real estate consultant, right? In our job, it's description, it's also advising the client of certain things. Like, oh, the mortgage company rejected you. They said no loan. Let's figure out why. Because you're well qualified, so why did they reject you? Does that make sense? Your homeowner's insurance was rejected. Let's figure out why. See, our job is not to go and tell the mortgage professional or the insurance company what they're doing wrong or not, but it is our job to advise our clients on what could be deemed discrimination. Okay? You got it? So remember, we're learning a lot of things that are general real estate because we are consultants. So we're supposed to have a broad knowledge of the profession and everything it entails. Okay? Also, well, Crystal, kind of right. Realtors have been the driving force behind these practices as well. It's not just us, guys. I do consider realtors, no offense to anybody because you guys are going to be it, but I am as well. But I do consider us and car salesmen almost in the same category, in the same level, right? And I'm not sure if anybody's a car salesman, and I'm sorry, but this is the honest truth. Out of all salespeople, well, next to the vacuum salespeople, we're the worst. We're at the bottom of the pit in terms of consideration of who's the best or the worst type of salesman. We're like all the way at the bottom, right next to or right above, just immediately above car salesman. So people already have a bad perception of who we are. And if we don't learn, how to do things better, if we don't learn about these things that we just talked about, then how can we make it better? You guys understand? So people have a really bad perception about salesperson. Why do we think we get into a status called realtor? Because nobody wants to be called a salesperson. The first thing I think of when I hear salesman is somebody's going to knock on my door, right? Try to sell me something. That's the first thing that pops into my mind. And it's a bad taste for everybody. Okay? Stanley Steamer. All right. It would affect the salesperson if the client is purchasing it as well. Yep. Cool. Gil, I'm pretty sure this was a K, not an L. Right? Gil? Please tell me you're going to correct that. It says honesty, no games, and make the clients comfortable with you again. All right. Next. All right. Next we have enforcement. So we're done with the federal portion of it. It's just now the enforcement of it. Now, guys, here we go. A person who believes illegal discrimination has occurred has up to 1 year after the alleged act, to file a charge with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that's HUD. Or you have 2 years to go straight to federal court. So it's either with HUD or federal court. Now, HUD, or Housing and Urban Development, will investigate, and if the department believes that a discriminatory act has occurred or is about to occur, they may issue a charge. Any party involved, or even HUD, may choose to have the charge heard in the federal district court. So meaning we can go to federal court to handle this, or if no one requests to go to federal court, the charge, right on top, will be heard by an administrative law judge within HUD itself. So HUD has their own judges and they can make determinations. So if we don't go to federal court, HUD will take action. Now this judge has the authority to issue an injunction. What is an injunction? It's an order. It's an order. It's an I can't for you, David. So David just asked if they're called HUDges, since they're judges from HUD. That was a good one. All right, so these HUDges have they can make a decision, and this is called an injunction, where they give you an order to either do something or stop doing something. So an injunction is an order to do something or stop doing something. Now, on top of that order that the judge or the HUD will give, there's penalties, and they range from $19,787 for first violation to $49,467 for second violation within 5 years, and $98,935 for further violations within 7 years, which is not bad. As I always say, guys, the first sale of the year, the first closing you have, just set aside to cover violations, okay? This way you can do whatever you want and discriminate, and it's already paid for. It's a lot easier. Now, Tidy, don't give me that face that you were giving me right now. You know it's sarcasm, irony, that's all. I'm always joking. Save that money for something else called IRS at the end of the year. All right. Now, if the case is heard in the federal court, there's going to be an injunction, right? So the order, and pay attention, actual and punitive damages are possible. What are actual damages is whatever the person actually suffered from your actions, right? Punitive damages is punishment. The judge not only gave you an order, not only awarded the actual penalties, whatever they suffered, the damages, right? But they're also punishing you. So let's say the damages were $200,000. They're telling you, sell the house, pay $200,000, and as punishment, because of what you did, because of your actions, and to make this a lesson for everybody else, here's another $3 million fine that you have to pay. So, punishment. Punitive damages is punishment. And they come with no dollar limit. What does that mean? It could be an extra $100,000, it could be an extra $1 million, it could be $3, $4, $5, $10 million. Whatever the judge feels like that day as punishment. Okay? No dollar limit. Linda Valera says, you sarcastic? Never. Yep, sorry. I was dipped in sarcasm when I was born. What can I say? You too? Great. All right. In addition to the offended parties. So we haven't stopped yet. I always say this is like a 2 o'clock in the morning commercial where they say you get 2 for 1, but wait, if you act now, there's more, right? That's what it is. In addition to the offended parties, meaning the people that complained, the Department of Justice, DOJ, may itself sue anyone who seems to show a pattern of illegal discrimination. So if they feel that you are actually discriminating, this is your standard way of being, they can actually sue you independently. So aside from the lawsuit you got from the Janice, I know. So besides from the lawsuit you got from the complainants, right? You get a separate lawsuit from Department of Justice. In all such cases mentioned, the guilty party may be required to pay also the other side's legal fees and court costs. So on top of this, you're still going to pay for their attorney, for their filing fees, for their everything leading on to this judgment. Crazy, right? I told you yesterday, if you thought the fines like the $1 million fine and the 10 years in prison, if you thought that was too much, today I was going to bankrupt you. I said that, right? Well, here you go. But wait, there's more. It says right here, complaints brought under the Civil Rights Act of 1866 must be taken directly to a federal court. The only time limit for action would be for the state statutes for torts. And torts are injuries done by one individual to another. And guess what? One more time. No dollar limit on damages. You guys got it? Now question. It says right here, we just read, that if the complaint is based on 1866 law, it must be taken directly to federal court. So let me know in the chat, please. If it's based on 1866 law, what are we talking about? If it's based on what then? 1866 law. Nicole, not Civil Rights Act. It's based on what? Gary, not Civil Rights Act. It's based on what? Okay, what I want you guys to associate immediately. 1866 equals race and color. All this happening right here. Race and color. Okay? That's the thing you need to remember. 1866 automatically triggers race and color. Okay? There's no other 1866 in the book. It's not going to be in the state exam. You just need to remember that if it's based on race and color, it goes straight to federal court. 1866 law, race and color, no exceptions apply. Okay? And Janice got it as well. Cool. All right, Daphne's coming up with a question. There you go. What are torts? Torts, right here, Daphne. A tort is an injury done by one individual to another. So you see this a lot when you apply for car insurance. Probably you've seen this several times. Limitation on torts, right? So tort just means injuries done by one person to another. So if the statute of limitations, for instance, in the state of New Jersey, statute of limitation for torts is 2 years, right? So you have 2 years to sue another person. But I'm going to show you that for discrimination, it's a little different. Okay? Daphne, you got it? Yeah, okay. Let me see. All right, make sure you guys have cameras on, and I'm seeing you guys. Whoever still has hours counting towards their 75 hours. Make sure you have your cameras. If you've done the class already, no. But if it's the first time and it's counting towards your hours, I need to have you on camera, okay? Ileana, you got me in your ear? Poor you. Let's see. Hey, Jonathan, don't send me anything private, but in the Zoom chat, but that's good news, I guess. So I'm going to have to now wait until it clears what you wrote. All right, guys. So, threats or acts of violence. Threats or acts of violence. If it's a threat or act of violence, you guys need to know that these are punishable by appropriate civil action, and you should take this directly to the local police and to the nearest office of the FBI. When it comes to threats or acts of violence, do not wait. Take it to the police or directly to the FBI. And when we're saying threats or act of violence, it's not calling the police because somebody's barbecuing next to you. Okay? Just saying. All right. Julie, for this time, yes, please. Steven, you're actually telling me to give you an example of threats or acts of violence? Turn on TV. There's plenty of examples. And Gary just said, don't be a Karen, or Amy Cooper. Wow. All right, next. Too much. Oh, you actually wanted me to give you an example? You just wrote never mind? You actually wanted an example? What is a threat? One thing is the act of violence. The other thing is a threat to be violent. If they're threatening you to take certain actions against you. What will happen as far as real estate goes? Okay, let's put it this way. This obviously is more geared towards the clients, but also as an agent, you need to protect yourselves, okay? Especially, and no offense, it has nothing to do with weaker sex or anything like that, but especially women. Try not to go alone to certain, even men should not go alone to certain places at certain hours. If you know it's a high crime area, definitely be careful. If you know that the property is vacant, doesn't matter which area it is, things could happen. If you guys watch the news, if you guys search cases where realtors were showing houses and unfortunately some things happen, right? And some realtors were hurt, some unfortunately were actually no longer with us. But this is in general, it's not just realtors. It's not just salespeople showing properties. It could happen to anyone. So that's why there's a lot of groups like mortgage groups, title groups. There are funding self-defense classes for realtors. right? For any independent professional, even insurance and all that stuff. Especially when you go to vacant homes, you never know what you could find or what could happen. So always let someone know. Okay, Crystal just wrote that. Yep. Always let somebody know, hey, I'm going to this house to show the house. All right? Especially your broker, your team leader, a coworker. Let him know. Because threats of violence could happen. Acts of violence could happen. And if they do, straight to police, straight to FBI. That's what it is. But it could happen between clients as well. So we just have to be aware that unfortunately we are in a world that people still discriminate and take certain stupid actions towards others, right? And sometimes people that feel discriminated also take stupid actions towards others. It goes on both ends. There's stupid people on both ends. The ones that discriminate and the ones that feel discriminated, they're stupid people on both ends, right? Hopefully nobody gets offended about what I'm saying, because discrimination is real. What I'm saying is that certain people take it to certain extremes without necessity. And this happens in every type of profession. Here we're talking about the real estate world. Now, New Jersey law against discrimination. We're done with federal, going to state. Here's what you guys need to know. By the way, this is what Crystal wrote. Track your movements. She uses that with her son all the time. Absolutely. So we have that on our kids as well on their phones. Automatically, they get out of the house, we get an alert. What's going on? All right, so immediately. You never know. Here at the office, we have that practice. If you go show a house by yourself, let one of us know. It doesn't matter if you're man or woman. It really does not matter. If you go show a house by yourself and it's a vacant home or anything like that, let us know. All right, because if you don't show up after a while, or if you don't communicate after a while, I know you're at a bar and I'm going to go join you. That's all. Next. So it's important, guys, right here. It's important to note, as I said before, that federal law only applies to residential. Federal law applies to residential. But New Jersey law, so state law, applies to all real property. So state applies to all real property. What does that mean? It means that all these laws we've been talking about, these protections, now apply to residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, everything. Okay, even recreational. It falls into these categories as well. Okay, that's just New Jersey. Federal law, the exemptions are or protections are for residential housing. State law says, I see you and I raise you to all real estate. Okay? Oh my God. Sarah says, can you legally get mace and pepper spray when you have a license like New York? And Gil right away says, remind me not to ever upset you. So I'm not going to address that right now, moving forward. I'll send you an article on that. But remind me not to upset you either. And she said she wanted to come here and visit the office. I don't know now. Sarah, you know, a little scared of you now. All right. I thought you were bringing wine, not mace. All right. So protected classes. We're going to go to the next page. And I want you to go all the way at the bottom. Okay? Crystal, I will share with everyone. Yes, I want you to go all the way at the bottom, and there's a table 4.1. Okay, now this table is going to be your cheat sheet for discrimination. So I want you guys, if you have the physical book, great. Just do this in the physical book, and put a call to action. Okay, so you can pay attention later. Perla, yes, and I will share an article on that. Abanub, I see you're busy. Let me know when you're back with us. So why do I call this the cheat sheet? Because everything we've been saying right now is here. Look. Legislation, Civil Rights Act of 1866. What does it cover? Race, hold on. It covers race and color right there. If it's the Fair Housing Act of 1968, what does it cover? Race, color, religion, and national origin. So this is your cheat sheet for you to know what each act refers to. Okay? Now, I want to show you New Jersey. Right at the bottom, New Jersey. Look what it covers. Actually, let me zoom in. So this is Jersey. What does it cover? Do you guys see it? It covers pretty much everything. Now, I knew somebody was going to make that comment, Talia. Everything but age. All right. See, here's the thing. Because age is covered under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974, right here, then the state covers it as well. You need to understand how things work. We have the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, right? We have federal law, we have state law, and it keeps trickling down all the way to municipal law. Municipal law cannot go against state, state cannot go against federal, and federal cannot go against Constitution, okay? But they can complement each other. You can add on, you can make it more. So let's think of Constitution as being the burger, and they ask you, do you want fries and Coke? I mean, you already got the burger. Do you want fries and Coke? That's what happened here. All right, we have the constitutional laws, and then federal laws are the fries, and then state says, well, here's the Coke and all the condiments, throw it into as one package. You guys understand? It can be an add-on, but it can never go against. You guys got it? So they made stricter laws on discrimination. That's all it is. One thing I want to show you guys also, this is New Jersey. All right, some of you are going to have to tilt your head. I'm sorry. I cannot tilt this here. So you're going to have to tilt your head. But it says marital status. New Jersey covers marital status as a protected class. So some people might not rent to you if you're single. Some people might not rent to you if you're married. Some people might not rent to you because of whatever. So marital status is covered under New Jersey. It's protected. Ancestry is there. Also, affectional or sexual orientation. So between this, gender identity or expression, and marital status are three potential questions regarding New Jersey law in the state exam. Marital status, protected class. Affectional or sexual orientation, protected class. Gender identity or expression, protected class. We cannot discriminate based on any of those, and there might be a question in the state exam regarding these, okay? You guys got it? All right. Can I explain again? Where is Daphne? Daphne, right there. What do you want me to explain again? What part are you confused? I'm sorry. Where did I confuse you? You just wrote cool? That's what I confused you with? Never mind. No, did you get it or no? I'm looking at you. Did you get it or no? Because you wrote cool, never mind. I just want to make sure. So Carlos has the right answer. Just pretty much sell or rent to anyone, right? Don't discriminate. All right. As I usually say, there's only one color that I see, and that's green, right? Because if I do the right job to anybody that's entitled to buy or sell, right, Vanessa? Then at the end, what do we get? We get the green. Simple. That's the only color you should look at. But what I was telling you, Daphne, you want me to explain again about the marital status and all that? It's just that there might be a question where it asks if if somebody tries to, let's say, two people come see the property, one's married and one is single, and both qualified. Let's say that the landlord rejects a rental to the person that's single. Why? Solely because they are single, right? Some people might do that. Oh, you're single, so I don't want it because I already think of you coming here and doing parties, right? You're single. That's what it means. Party, 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 right? So, can they reject you just because you're single? Based on that notion, no, they cannot. They can reject you based on financial qualifications. Another thing that happens a lot is this one. Your sexual preference or how you identify yourself as, right? We know that. Cannot do it. Okay? Cannot do it at all. And these are some of the questions that might be in the state exam. If somebody has, I'm going to have that example in a little bit. You cannot reject the rental, okay? You cannot reject the rental of a apartment with one bedroom to people of the same sex if it was available to people of the opposite sex. So these are the type of questions that might pop up, right? You cannot reject. Rental is rental. Money is money. I don't care what they do inside the house. That's their problem, right? If people start minding their own lives, we'll do great, right? There's people that pretend to be one thing and behind closed doors they're totally different. So just saying. But that's what this is about. You're asking about familial status. Familial status simply means people under 18. So where it says familial status is people under 18. But I'm going to have something better in a little bit, okay? Sorry, Daphne. Why would that be under the law? Which part? People under 18? Oh, it's what I said before. You cannot reject. Actually, let me get to that part in a little bit in the book, and I'll explain better, okay? I'm almost there. So, one thing to remember right here under exceptions, okay? One thing to remember is that the only exception to New Jersey law applies to rentals. If you guys remember, federal law has exemptions for sale and rentals, right? That means the landlord or the homeowner could discriminate if they follow certain guidelines. You guys remember that? I see a lot of you without cameras. Make sure the cameras are on, please. Those of you that have the camera off, turn the cameras on. Hey, Heather, is it safe to open? Whatever you share? Is it PG? National Sarcasm Society. That was good. Well, I never know. I get all kinds of students. I never know what comes through. I'm going to create that badge for me then. There you go. Oh, yeah, I saw that. All right. So, as I said, exceptions are only to rentals because in the federal one, the exceptions are towards rentals and sale of residential property. New Jersey says if you're selling, you're selling. So why are you discriminating? Simple as that. You're getting out of here. Rentals, I understand because you're going to have to potentially live here. So look right here. For rentals, it says it allows rooms, apartments, or flats in certain types of housing to be restricted to members of one sex, religious-based organizations to discriminate on the basis of religion, and an owner-occupant to discriminate except for race in the rental of a duplex or up and down two-family dwelling. So if you guys remember, under federal law, we said owner-occupant, right? We said owner-occupant But we said also 1 to 4 family, right? If you live in the building that's no more than 4 units, if you live in the building that's no more than 4 units, under federal law, you can discriminate against whoever is going to live there next to you, right? Under state law says you can do it as well, but only in a duplex, which is side by side, or up and down 2 family. So if it's a 2 family, you can discriminate against whoever's going to live next to you or whoever's going to live above you. Only in rentals of 2 families. So New Jersey does not allow discrimination on single families and does not allow discrimination on 3 or 4. Okay? Federal, yes. Jersey, no. Now, one thing you need to remember is that there's never, ever, ever, ever exception for race, whether or not a broker is involved. Okay? So race in federal and in state, and almost every state has something that points this out. Whether it's rental or sale, you can never discriminate based on 1866 law. So let's write 1866 here again. No discrimination. You guys good? Cool. So, next page. Blockbusting and record keeping. Didn't we talk about blockbusting already? I thought we covered that, didn't we? Yeah. So, but that was in federal. This is state, right? So here we go. Under state, they want you to keep records of your marketing activities. That's all it says. They want you to keep records of marketing activities. You want to make sure that you keep these records for at least 1 year. If you're soliciting listings from more than 3 homeowners in a single block in a single month. So if you're advertising to everybody on a particular block, they just want to make sure that you're not skipping doors because of race, color, religion, or national origin. For instance, some of the marketing that we do is strictly to expired listings. Other type of marketing we do is for people that purchased a house more than 5 years ago. I don't do marketing because one is white, the other one's black, the other one's Portuguese, the other one's Spanish, the other one's... That's not the type of marketing we do. We do it based on the 5-year mark because the average American moves every 5 years, or based on expiration of listing because the previous realtor was not able to sell the property. So these are 2 types of marketing that we do. There's more, but these are 2 types of marketing that we do towards particular groups or blocks of people. Okay? So they just want to make sure that all your marketing does not involve any type of racial profiling. Okay? You guys got it? Questions? Some of you, I see you're like on 2 or 3 different chats because I see smiles. Some are just laughing, so there's conversation in the house. That's awesome. I want to see you guys smiling when the exam comes. So make sure you guys focused on what we're doing. It's only 4 weeks, and it's only from 5:30 to 9 or 9:15 sometimes, or 9:20 sometimes, I know. But it's only for a limited amount of time, for only 4 weeks. I want to make sure everybody passes, but it depends on you as well, right? Just saying. All right, poster. We talked about New Jersey poster, right? We talked about the federal, and I said there was a New Jersey poster. Now it says right here that if you don't display the poster, the New Jersey poster, then you could get fined $100 or more. Now, what's $100? Nothing, right? But don't forget, not displaying the poster is also evidence of discrimination. So the $100 fine is just a nominal fine, but there's still the investigation going on. And that takes us to enforcement. Stephen, no, that's not what it is. And David, yeah, it goes by fast. Very fast. Uh, Enforcement. So this is the state enforcement. We talked about federal enforcement. You have up to 1 year to file a complaint, right? Or 2 years to go to federal lawsuit, right? Under New Jersey, you have 180 days, so 6 months, to go complain to the state attorney general. Okay? 6 months. They will make a decision and award reimbursement for medical expenses, awards for pain, suffering, and even humiliation. And on top of that, just like under federal, there are fines. In this case, up to $10,000 for first offense, $25,000 for second offense, and $50,000 for subsequent offenses. Okay? Under federal, there was 19, 48, and 93 to the offenses. So it builds up quickly. Right on top, notice at listing. I think I addressed this yesterday. If people intend to discriminate, you must reject them, right? So here's what it says. Notice at listing. This notice is only at listing. So when you're dealing with the seller, this notice is only for the seller. And it says you got to give a copy. So notice is disclosure. You got to give a copy of the Attorney General Memorandum of Law Against Discrimination. That must be given to every homeowner that intends to list the property. Okay? And then it says salespersons must refuse listings from owners who indicate or intend to violate the law. So you don't have to take every listing. But if you do, remember I said yesterday, if you do take a listing of somebody that intends to violate the law, then you become also a person that discriminates by default. Okay? You guys got it? Good. State regulation on rentals. So while these two categories are not listed as protected classes in New Jersey law against discrimination, state statutes do prohibit refusing to rent because of the would-be tenant's lawful source of income. So this provision, covered only by state and not by federal law, forbids discrimination based on income that's derived from welfare or other subsidies such as Section 8 housing funds. Tell me you have not seen ads that say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, no Section 8. Have you seen ads that say no Section 8? Right. So here's the thing. Unless they've been rejected by Section 8 or they communicated to Section 8 that they don't want their house to be participating in that type of program, unless they've done that, they cannot reject the applicant. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that they have to approve them, right? Or select them if there's other people that are qualified, equally qualified. What we're saying is, oh, you're on Section 8? No, get out of here. You cannot do that. You have to still take the application. Do you understand? That doesn't mean you have to approve them, but you cannot just kick them out. That's what I'm saying. Now, the state statute, Daphne, also prohibits refusal to rent to families with children under 18. So familial status would be people under 18 trying to rent. So let's say you're 16 or 17 and you emancipate, you move out of the house. You can try to rent an apartment, but because you're a minor, right? That's what's perceived by the landlord. Because you're a minor, they cannot reject you, right? If you've been emancipated. Emancipated means you're now treated as an adult. And here it says that if it's a family with children under 18, have you seen ads that say no children allowed? It's the same thing. You cannot do that. This is a state statute that specifically addresses it. Okay? So Daphne, that's why it's under law. Got it? Cool. Question came in. Vanessa says, can you please repeat state regulation on rental? This? Okay. So all I was saying is that the source of income and children and families. So if they're getting a Section 8 voucher or even a TRA, temporary rental assistance voucher, right? These are legal funds. You can reject somebody that makes cash, like it's undocumented income. So if you cannot verify their income, then why would you accept them? Okay? But I understand. Maybe it's because you want to declare cash as well at the end of the year, right? Just it becomes dangerous. So what we're saying here is, if it's a legal source of income, like Section 8 or welfare funds, then you cannot discriminate. If it's people with children under 18, you cannot discriminate, Vanessa. That's all we said. Okay? All right, there's other provisions. So when we talked about sexual orientation and gender expression and all that stuff, now we go into this. It says, New Jersey says, a landlord cannot refuse. I see a question coming, Geraldine. Just type it and I'll address it, okay? A landlord cannot refuse to rent a one-bedroom apartment to two members of the same sex if the same apartment would be available to members of the opposite sex who are equally qualified. It is illegal to subject a tenant to sexual harassment. So like I said, New Jersey has a very strict policy when it comes to discrimination. And this is one of them. They include people of the same sex. If they want to rent an apartment, right, then they can. And the landlord cannot reject based on that. Whatever their sexual preference or gender expressions would be, the landlord has nothing to do with that. They just need to know it's a one bedroom. Yes, it's $500. It's $1,000. It's $2,000. Whatever it is. Do you have the money? Yes. Okay. Boom. Rent. Again, whatever they do behind closed doors is their problem. Simple. If it's a man and a woman, it's their problem. If it's a man and a man, it's their problem. If it's a woman and a woman, it's their problem. You got nothing to do with that. Let them pay the rent. Simple. Geraldine says, I've seen ads that say no children under 10 or 14. Does it also count as discrimination? Absolutely. Anything under 18. Unless it's a senior citizen type of community, so senior housing, then they are exempt. Okay? It says here, a lease may not provide that it will become null and void on the birth of a child. What does that mean? It means I rented to two of you, all of a sudden one of you decided to get pregnant. Like, come on, really? The rent was for two, not 2.5. So get out of here. You cannot put that in the lease. Cannot be a lease provision that if you become pregnant and then you have a baby, you need to go. Cannot be a lease provision. Now, a facility that does not admit pets must permit a guide or service dog. And we said before that a person with AIDS is considered a person with disability, so they're protected. Okay? Landlords are allowed to enforce health regulations. So when I said, congratulations, you're pregnant, right? Instead of putting on the lease, congratulations, you're pregnant, get out, what I can say is, hey, listen, it's a one-bedroom apartment. By law, federal and state law, after 6 months, the baby has to have its own room. So, unfortunately, you reach the maximum number of people allowed in this apartment. That's what it is. So, if it's based on health and safety regulations, I can definitely ask you to leave. Okay, I got to give you enough time, but I can ask you to leave. And of course, it's always proper to accept or reject prospective tenants on the basis of their ability to pay the rent, so how much money they make, and of course on their likelihood of doing so, which is what we now have as a credit rating. So we can reject people based on their financial qualifications. You guys got it? Okay, awesome. This is the state poster, which we have here at the office as well. All right, page 57 and 58 is the Attorney General Memorandum. So make sure you put a reference on your notebook. Page 57 and 58, it's the Attorney General Memorandum of Law Against Discrimination. And this is where it talks about those penalties that we just read. And what you have to do, and so on. Okay. We're on page 59. We're almost done with this chapter. Next chapter is very short. All right, so on page 59, we have multiple dwelling reporting. If you have a property, and this might be a question, it might be a tricky question, they'll put 20 units or more instead of 25. But if they have a question, they say you own 20 units or more, then you must report every year for what, right? First of all, you don't have to. But if it's 25 units or more, then you do have to report annually. There's an annual report to the State Division of Civil Rights. And that annual report is about the racial composition of your building and methods of advertisement. Meaning, let's say, okay, the example I usually give is very simple. Let's say you live in, like your building is in an Hispanic community, as an example, right? If it's in an Hispanic community, then what most likely is going to be the composition of the building? Most likely is going to be Hispanic, correct? What they want to know, what the Division of Civil Rights wants to know, is that your advertisement is not specific to Hispanics, right? It's not exclusive. Does that make sense, guys? They want to know that the apartments, the units, are available to anyone that wants to rent. The fact that the majority is Hispanic is basically because of the numbers of the people around. But if I want to live there, I want to live there, period. And you give me an opportunity to do so when you advertise to everybody. You guys got it? That's what this requirement is. Crystal, it's one building or freestanding units. Okay? They want to make sure they have 25 or more units. That's not in one single building. It says developments. So it could be one building, it could be more. Now, the next thing we have is zoning discrimination. Chapter 9, we're going to go back to this as well, zoning discrimination. See, in 1971, a lawsuit that came to be known as Mount Laurel I was filed by the NACP against the township of Mount Laurel. Why? Because Mount Laurel was discriminating against low-income and moderate-income persons through the use of exclusionary zoning. So every time you see exclusionary zoning, you have to remember that we're talking about the poor people. Low and moderate income fall under the poor qualification. So by 1975, it took 4 years for this ruling. By 1975, the court ruled that the poor may not be excluded from residential areas. But did Mount Laurel listen? No, they didn't. So guess what? 1983, there's a second lawsuit against Mount Laurel for the same exact reasons. They did not listen. Much like what's happening now. Nobody listens, right? So here you go. It resulted now in the courts providing specific guidelines for all developing communities and says that all municipalities have an obligation to provide a range of housing. Now, what I want you to notice is keyword, developing communities. Not for state exam, but in real life, if you start questioning, well, but there are certain towns that don't have their fair share, as it says here. Certain towns don't have it. Why? Because there's no new developments. Like one thing is buying a piece of land, knocking the house down and building another one. Another thing is developing, so creating more apartment units, creating a brand new structure for housing purposes. So not a single family, but more structures. So if there's a new development, then that town must comply with the law. And it says we have to have higher density developments. You have to have a 20% set aside for low moderate income. You have to have zoning for mobile homes, right? And even cooperation between different towns, okay? So what we're saying here is we cannot exclude low moderate income from residential areas. Remember that. Zoning, when we're talking about exclusionary zoning or zoning discrimination, we're talking about poor. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody that might be in the middle income area, but it's considered here poor. Low and moderate income, if you're not in the top 2% of the United States, you are poor. That's how we say it. Okay? So you have protection. If you make less than $120,000 in the state of New Jersey, you are poor. Did you guys know that this is 2 years ago came out this, that there's roughly a little bit over 55% of New Jerseyans cannot live in New Jersey. They cannot afford to live in New Jersey. So a little bit over half of the state cannot afford to live in the state because of the income that they have. If you don't make more than $120,000, it's tough to live in the state. Daphne, what is considered residential? So where you have houses 1 to 4. Okay. Linda, it looks like you're very comfortable out there. She's like chilling. All right. Next, we have HUD and NAR Fair Housing Partnership. A partnership here in this case is an agreement. Okay? It's not something that we need to adhere to, right? It says here we don't have to sign any declaration of adherence to it. But this partnership is between the National Association of Realtors and HUD. The National Association of Realtors, it's a private trade association where HUD is a federal association. So what we're saying here is we, realtors, said to the federal government, hey, let us help you, and in turn, you help us. So we made an agreement, a partnership, that we will inform our brokers, that we will inform and train our agents, right, to the rules of fair housing. That's all it is. So they made a partnership. Now, as I said, you don't have to sign any declarations. You don't have to say that you will follow, okay? But if you don't, if you don't follow, it's one of those things like, look, it's like a conscience. You guys know what a conscience is, right? Like free thought, right? You're allowed to think, right? So you know what's right and you know what's wrong. Like you don't have to do the right thing, right? But you shouldn't do the wrong thing. But people still decide whatever they want to do. So what we're saying here is, it's a free thought. You don't have to follow it. You will be trained on it. But if you don't follow it, if you don't do it, if you violate the laws, you could lose your license, and also there'll be hefty penalties. That's all. Like you don't have to sign, now, I promise that I will not discriminate. You don't have to sign anything like that. But it's common sense. You guys got it? Simple? Great. Implications for brokers. Here's the thing. We are the ones that take the burden of understanding these laws and passing along to the consumers and even to our coworkers, okay? Why? Because we get trained on it. Like you guys not even licensed, you're already learning about non-discrimination, right? Now, what you need to know is that the complainant, whoever felt discriminated against, does not have to prove guilty knowledge or specific intent. See, if I feel discriminated against, I only have to say, well, Nicole discriminated against me. I felt discriminated, and it was Nicole. I'm telling you. That's what it was, right? That's it. I don't have to prove that she did it on purpose or that she knew what she was doing. But I felt discriminated against, and now, remember that, for instance, steering could be subtle, or it could be subconscious. She might not have done it on purpose, but she still did it. As a professional, that's a big no-no. So that's why we need to have constant training. We need to have the posters and constant training to our agents about the guidelines, especially updates in the guidelines of what you can and cannot do. Guys, you'd be surprised the things that I learned along the way from agents that go to training on ethics and stuff like that. And they come back and like, Bruno, did you know that we cannot discriminate? We cannot say these things or those things. I'm like, yeah, when you were in school, you didn't learn this, right? Your office did not teach you this? Do you guys understand? Every 2 years you got to do CE credits, and every 2 years you're going to learn something again. It's not something new, it's something again. You're going to learn it again. Every 2 years. Ethics is part of your continuous education. Now, if somebody asks you, I want to live in this particular area. Well, HUD says, and it's very difficult for us to play this in real life, but you got to try. HUD says, hey, I know you want to live in that particular area, in that type of group of people or whatever, but I cannot give you that type of advice. What I can do, though, is show you several homes that meet your specifications, and then you'll have to decide which one you want. Oh, but I want to be in the Portuguese community. Okay, good. But I cannot give you that type of advice. You have to figure that out on your own. I can show you houses in a particular area. What is the area you want to live in? Oh, I want to live in Newark. Okay, great. So I'm going to show you houses in the Newark area. You guys understand? I cannot point at a particular community or a particular group of people and presume that that's the area that belongs to them. Why? Because it's not discrimination against the Portuguese people, in my particular example right now. It's discrimination against everybody else that's also part of that area code or part of that town. You got it? You cannot say that the Ironbound is the Portuguese section. No, there's a lot of Portuguese people. You cannot say the Ironbound is the Brazilian section. No, there's a lot of Brazilian people. Do you guys understand? There's a lot of different people that live and work and participate here in the Ironbound section of Newark. So saying that that's the Portuguese area or saying that that's the Brazilian area is discrimination. You guys got it? Okay? So you have to show houses that meet their specifications. That's it. All right, on page 60, it says advertising. And I already told you that I was going to show you guidelines on what you can and cannot say, right? So here are the guidelines. Very simple. At the bottom, there's a table 4.2. And I want you to do exactly the same thing you did with table 4.1 on page 54. And what you did was, I asked you to either put a reference on your notebook, or if you have the physical book, to put a box around it and call to action. Why? Because these are your guidelines for advertisement and even to speak, because speaking is advertisement. Look right here. Let's start with this one. Let's start with race, color, or national origin. The rule is no discriminatory limitation, and preference may be expressed. We can say master bedroom or good neighborhood, right? And this is about to change, by the way. But master bedroom or good neighborhood. What we cannot say is white neighborhood or no French, right? Here's another one. If it's based on religion, we can say, no religious preference or limitation. We can say chapel on premises if there is one. We can say kosher meals available if that's an amenity that's part of the building, let's say. We can even say Merry Christmas because it's patriotic. That's how they have it. What we cannot say is no Muslims, no nice Christian family, or near great Catholic school. And as I always ask, what is so wrong with near great Catholic school? Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this? What's wrong with near great Catholic school? Stephen says, saying it's a great school. Why? Catholic schools are not great? All right, steering, opinion. Opinion is okay. It's not the great. You guys got it wrong. It's not the great part of it. All right, some of you got it. Let's address this. The Catholic part, that's what's wrong. Not that there's something wrong with Catholics, so I'm sorry if you are. What I meant was, The moment you say near great Catholic school, what are you trying to attract? Only Catholics. So the discrimination is not the Catholic part, is that if I'm Jewish and you said near great Catholic school, then you're trying to attract Catholics only, but I really like that house, you just discriminated against me and my people. Do you understand? So that's where it is. The same way we say no Muslims, the same way we don't say nice Christian family. The moment we're putting religion in it, we're discriminating against the other types of religion. So just avoid it altogether. Near great school, right? If they are, or just avoid putting schools altogether, right? You can pull a report of nearby schools. That's different. So Crystal said it discriminates against atheists. No, against everybody. Perla says shouldn't mention religion. Yeah, just avoid it altogether. But these are just guidelines, guys. And these guidelines are constantly evolving. They're constantly changing. HUD advertising guidelines. At the end of this chapter, on page 62, you can get, there's a website, which is HUD.gov, and then specific to the guidelines. Or you can go and Google HUD advertising guidelines and see what has changed. Do not do any type of advertisement without reviewing it. That's why it's very important, guys. We tell our agents all the time, if you're going to do any type of advertisement, bring it to us first. Let us review it and make sure everything is okay. For several reasons. One of them, it must include the logo. The other, it must include information about the company, and then your information, and then the house, right? So always have it approved by somebody that knows, or at least study the guidelines. Okay? The very last thing we have is testing. And in front of testing, I want you to write mystery or secret shoppers. Okay? And that's all it is. Mystery or secret shoppers. So testers or testing, testers is simply people that go and volunteer. In this case, they volunteer to go see. Oh, got it. Thanks, man. To go see, Flavio says his iPad's going to die soon. I'm going to give you a break right now. We're done. Plus, it's an iPad. That's why it's going to die soon. Anyway, so what we're saying is people go and test to see how the office is performing. So mystery shoppers or secret shoppers, what they do is they go to businesses, pretend to be consumers, and see how they're treated. Some of them get compensated for it. Others do it because they want to do it. In this case, they are volunteers. So they do it because they want to do it. Okay? The idea behind it is testing compliance with fair housing laws. That's what it is, right here in green. Testing compliance with fair housing laws. Now, two other things real quick is this right here. Is that you cannot say, well, but, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot in the news recently. Yeah, but I've already helped people from that type of color, race, religion, right? I've helped those kind of people before. I helped them buy, I helped them sell, right? I've done it in the past. No, past service doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The fact that you discriminated is still discrimination. You guys understand? Right? Very, very important. Tidy, I'm going to ignore that one. That's why, as I've been saying all along, every broker should have a written policy and training on fair housing that all agents should be familiar with and follow. All right, guys? Any questions? No questions? All right, cool. So that is summary. We are done. It's 8:10, well, 8:11. We're going to be back by 8:20, okay? I will be back. It's a short chapter, but 8:20. See you in a little bit.